looks like you guys got some lunch. It's great. If you don't want any, that's fine as well. We do have plenty back there. Thank you for coming to our lecture. Thank you, Dr. Rhiannon for coming and speak to us about something. I don't think you got your PhD in this, did you?
No.
No, but as a researcher, she did a lot of research on dog training. And the lack of training that's available in this town, hopefully, she's filling in that gap. And the rest of the time is hers. So, this is just a once a month lecture series that we have. Next month, I'm trying to get a former CIA agent to talk about 9/11. Hopefully that will be, something to look forward to. We're hoping to have that one right before spring break. And I'm in the works of trying to get beer makers, for the next one, which is in April.
Most of them are underage.
Oh, yeah, it's still make beer, you just can't consume it.
In Australia.
But yes, so it just the rest of the time is Dr. Rhiannon, so enjoy it.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation too.
Thanks for being here.
As Byron said, I did not do my PhD on anything dog related. I actually worked on geophysics, seismology in particular. Yeah, this is much more fun. So, yeah, but I have some dogs that got me to where I am now. Zena, she's no longer with us, but I got her when she was about 6 years old. She was my mom's until then. And tragically, she had some food aggression and ended up killing one of her other dogs in just a kind of heat of the moment, just quick snap. It wasn't like a full-on aggressive attack, but still, my mom was kind of shook, and so I took her. She was an only dog, so I didn't really have to worry about the food aggression. And she was actually pretty well trained when I got her, so there were only minor things. With her, I mostly learned a lot about nutrition and exercise. When I first got her, she could maybe walk half a mile before she was just done. And by the time she passed it, she was 2 weeks shy of 11 years old. She was hiking with me 12 miles. So I think for a big dog, that was pretty good. Some other things I helped her through. She was pretty wary of men. I lived in a duplex and shared a front area with my neighbor who was a large build guy, and she would accost him every time he was leaving or coming home. And by the end, he was her favorite person. Treats helped a lot. And Mr. Klaus, he is probably the reason I'm doing this. So I rescued him in June of last 2 years ago. Last year, yeah. Can't remember. It's been a long journey with him, but first month I had him, I cried every single day. He was extremely reactive. He has severe separation anxiety. He actually broke out of my apartment.
That sounds
He broke out of a car window. He hit a dog in the face. He was a mess. He's come a very long way. He doesn't really have dog friends, but he tolerates other dogs, and he lives peacefully with 2 others who I'll introduce here in a minute. So yeah, Klaus has taught me a lot about training and then also nutrition. Especially in this last few months, he actually was diagnosed with a brain tumor. So we're working through that, but he's actually doing pretty well. This week has been rough, but overall he's doing pretty well. Silver is my fiance's dog. He grew up on a ranch out in northeastern New Mexico. Was never inside. We brought him to live here last August. Or 2 Augusts ago. My sense of time is all messed up. But he had 0 accidents in the house. He had never walked on a leash, but now he does really well. Every once in a while, he'll start feeling confident and testing us. But he does really well. And then him and Klaus had a little bit of a get to know each other period when we moved in, but no bloodshed, so that was. And our most recent monster, Ella. We got her in December. Her First story is that my grandma in South Carolina had been talking about getting a dog, a little Chihuahua, for a long time, but she just didn't bite the bullet. So the night before I was going to make the cross country drive out to visit, my partner and I went up to Albuquerque and adopted a little Chihuahua for her. And we saw all the other dogs needing homes, and we ended up with Ella. 2 days later, I'm probably in Louisiana at this point. I get a call on the road from the shelter saying that they mistakenly adopted her out, that she was actually labeled as unadoptable because she was an aggressor on an attack, in an attack on another German Shepherd. And then I later learned that her backstory was that her and 2 other German Shepherds were neglected, all female, all unspayed, running the streets in Albuquerque. The other aggressor had been put to sleep, and the other one that was attacked survived and was recovering from surgery at the shelter, but had a very sweet disposition and was going to end up in a good place. So they said, you know, our mistake, we can't make you bring her back, but if she ends up back here, she will be. That was kind of a shock, but she hadn't been showing any kind of signs of aggression or anything towards Klaus, and they were, along with the little Chihuahua Jack, were in a Subaru Forester crowd across the country, so they did pretty well. So I was like, okay, she's not a no help case if I do this. And she's actually been less of a nightmare than Klaus was when I first got him. So still working on some things, but as I'll talk about how dogs have their own unique quirks and personalities, but these are the dogs that have led me to do extensive research and lots of man hours working with them on a variety of different things. So as I've been researching, I thought, you know, like, what is a dog? You know, like, we all kind of grow up with this idea of a dog. Many of us have had dogs growing up, but where do we actually learn, like, what is a dog? What does a dog need? How are they connected to us? And so, yeah, they're descendants of wolves, and they have a lot of characteristics that are still wolf-like appearance. There's sharp teeth, really strong sense of smell, certain things like socialization patterns and things like that. Still very wolf-like, but dogs are definitely not wolves. And so what makes that difference? People. So dogs have been with us for roughly 10,000 years. We kind of evolved together. And there's this really good book, The Genius of Dogs, if you haven't heard of it. Really interesting. Talks about how dogs domesticated themselves and how they kind of helped humans and humans help dogs. So if you want to learn more about the whole background of dogs, I recommend that book. So for the modern dog, how do we optimize their living? And why does that matter for training? Well, think about yourself. When do you learn best? You feel your best, right? When you're living your best life. So what does that mean for a modern dog? We'll start with diet. Like us, if we eat all the time, we're going to be sluggish, we're going to be slow, we're going to brain fog. When we eat also can matter. Dogs are kind of built for feast or famine, so fasting can actually help in a lot of cases, a lot of different things. A lot goes into this. But that's one area where we can make tweaks. Socialization. So like I mentioned with Klaus, he's not really a dog with friends, but I would argue that he gets socialization by going out on walks and sniffing, and that's kind of how dogs read the newspaper. That's their social media. They sniff things out. They can tell how old another dog is, the sex, and if they have any ailments or what they ate for breakfast, just based on their scent. And then they can also contribute when they pee on stuff. They're contributing to that story. They're not just Instagram creepers. They're putting themselves out there too. Exercise. One of the biggest myths is I have a big backyard, my dog is fine. That's not true at all. Because a lot of times the exercise and walking, they get that socialization as well. And so if you have a dog that's confined to their yard, they can kind of smell things, but they're like, I can't quite make out what that smell is. And again, just think about yourself. Like, you wouldn't get enough exercise or socialization just by walking around your backyard or your house. You go kind of stir crazy. Same with dogs. Sleep. Not much to say. Dogs do sleep more than humans, especially a really healthy dog. Won't be out pacing and agitated all the time. And the old saying, let sleeping dogs lie. Yeah, just don't wake your dog up unless you absolutely have to. You know, they look so cute. You just want to go pet them while they're sleeping, but you can reduce pollutants and toxins. So when we found out about Klaus's brain tumor, we started doing a really simple thing is we don't wear our shoes in the house anymore. Leave them at the front door and we wear slippers. It's kind of crazy how much you track in on your pavement from grocery store floors. It's actually kind of insane. There's a lot of other things you can do. Don't burn candles, especially ones with paraffin, like a petroleum product. Yeah, so that can also help too. And autonomy and choice. You know, it's really frustrating for us when we don't get to have a say in our lives or what we do. And so think about it, like our dogs, we tell them when they eat most of the time. We tell them when they get to go outside. We tell them, you know, where they can and cannot go. And so how do you give a dog autonomy and choice? Well, maybe on a walk, you let them choose which direction you go. You let them sniff for as long as they want. I mean, as long as they're not pulling you down to the ground and dragging you around town. So that's kind of where training comes in. You can meet a middle ground. It's like you get what you need and want, and I get what I need and want is you do not pull me, you get to sniff as long as you want. And the way we feed our dogs now is kind of intricate, but at the end, it's been pretty easy to implement. So if they don't feel like eating banana, we try something else. We don't force them to eat what they don't want. And here are some references for all of this. And I'm sure you can think of other ways to optimize your dog's life and living, but WAG is kind of a science-based approach to dog training. Caesar's Way has some really good points. So when I first started training Klaus, that's where I started. I started Caesar Millan, the dog whisperer, very well known. But now some of his techniques I don't agree with, but there are still a lot of concepts from him that I do agree with, so it's a good place to start. The Forever Dog, that's more science-based nutrition, diet type things, and then go into the kind of common sources of pollutants and toxins that you might not think about as well. And then the last one, she has an ebook, but she's not as well known, I don't believe. It's Nora Lenz with rotational mono feeding, basically just kind of more mimicking how a dog in the wild would eat. So I adopted a lot of. Okay, so now we're into kind of the training. So what is your dog really telling you? And learning how to read your dog is really important place to start. So these side eyes, a lot of times it'll be mentioned or called whale eyes. That's commonly a sign of kind of uncertainty, unease, just kind of like I'm not really comfortable. Something to, you know, if you know what's causing that, remove that thing. Like if a dog is being approached by a loud, obnoxious child, you might want to keep the child away, help the dog feel more comfortable. Yawning can be a sign of stress. They're relieving stress. It also just means they're tired. So it can be kind of tricky, but that's just another thing to kind of keep an eye on if you notice it happening in certain times or places, things like that. Important. The paw lift. Sometimes that can also mean uncertainty. They're not sure about something. I've seen this a lot in some of my dogs, especially when they first come home, figuring things out. Or if they see something far away, a loud truck or something like that. And sometimes it can be hard to tell. So this dog on the right is more relaxed than the dog on the left, but both are very alert. So the one on the right has the mouth open, it's kind of just like, oh, what's going on? Observing in a healthy way, whereas the other dog might be more intent on something, more of a prey drive, so you would notice that the mouth is shut, maybe the nose isn't going, isn't like observing as much as they should with their nose. And then bad behaviors. Do they jump? Do they bite? Do they pull on your clothes? That can be telling you something. They can be telling you that they're frustrated. They can be telling you that, you know, I've been rewarded unknowingly for doing this, and so I'm gonna keep doing it. And sometimes it's really not obvious. So I've been helping a lady. I'm very impressed. She has 6 dogs and I think just as many people living in her house. But it was actually not as chaotic as I was expecting. But they have a couple small dogs and some larger dogs and some older dogs and younger dogs. It's a pretty good mix of different kinds of dogs. And so we'll call him Cookie. So he, a smaller dog, he's kind of older, and there are 2 younger ones kind of still in the puppy stage, a little bit bigger than him. And it looked like play. So Cookie would be down on the ground like this, showing his ugly, various teeth. But the other 2 would just be over top of him and just not really listening to his signals. And because it was silent and because there was no barking, growling, or snapping, it was kind of easy for someone who's not used to observing dogs all the time to say, oh, they're just playing, they're just figuring it out, it's fine. I said, no, Cookie's not having a good time. You need to get the other 2 off of him. And so a few weeks later, I'm helping with some leash pulling with the puppy and I guess the 2 kind of puppies. She mentioned how after I had visited that first day, I told them to not let that happen to Cookie. He stopped spraying. He stopped peeing in the house. So him peeing in the house was his way of saying, hey, I'm frustrated. I feel picked on. I don't have anyone standing up for me. And then they went away for a weekend and someone else was watching them and being started again. So it's kind of, you wouldn't think, I didn't even know. I was like, yeah, I don't know how to help you with the peeing in the house right now, but I noticed this situation is not good. And so fixing what you do notice can help fix some other problems that you might not have an idea of how to fix it. Then what are you telling your dog? Are you rewarding them for bad behavior when you think you're rewarding them for good behavior? Are you calm and confident? Are you showing your dog that you can actually lead them and that they can trust you and respect you? People do really well with affection. Dogs most of the time don't need anyone to give them more affection, but some of the other points can be harder to. Then are you setting consistent boundaries? Is your dog always allowed on the bed? Is your dog sometimes allowed on the bed? And how do you tell them where that line is? And then the tools you use matter in training. And so these examples are more for walking on the leash. Some dogs do really well with the face halter or they call them gentle leaders. Silver and Klaus did really well with them. Ella was just frustrated the whole entire time. She was not having it at all. There was no way that she was going to ever get anywhere. Hook or prong collars, I don't use them at all. They can cause pain, which can actually increase aggression and reactivity. It just doesn't, in my opinion, it just does not help you build a good, healthy relationship. And then if they're not having a good relationship with you, it's going to be really hard to. And then body harnesses. So I use these most of the time. It can be kind of controversial in dog training. Harnesses were originally developed for dogs to pull things, and that's what you don't want them to do on a walk. Although, if you have a really high energy dog, a strong dog, you can get some roller blades and let them pull you, and that can really help get some of that energy out. But if you use the harness correctly or in a certain way, it can actually be a really good tool. And that's why I use them now. And also with crate training, that's another common issue people have is my dog just hates the crate. But you can do it in a way that they actually enjoy their crate. They have a positive association. And then using treats is also the most effective way, but you want to make sure that you're not luring your dog. Lure them, then they're more likely to do the bad behavior so that they get the treats. And then are you physically moving your dog? Are you physically pulling them down when they jump on people? You are doing the work for them, and so they don't ever really get it that, hey, this is my choice to not jump. And so some more case studies, like I said, Klaus and Silver did pretty well with the gentle leaders. However, we did notice that once we switched off of the gentle leaders to just a slip leash or the harness, at first they were back to pulling. So to me, that said, they never really learned to stay by my side and not pull. They just it was kind of more of a learned helplessness. Like, well, can't really pull from our base, so we're just not going. But if we had the choice, we would. And using some treats, Klaus, he is very motivated. I just had to put some treats in my hand, and ever since then, he's been right by my side. He doesn't really take off pulling. And so he can actually walk very nicely on a just slip leash, but more convenient, it's easier to put on. But I have gone back to using it. Then it's more comfortable, just in case he were to, for whatever reason, off. And then Miss Ella, yeah, she does not do well with the face harness, and she is very smart. She's also very strong-willed, and so it's taking her a while to get used to the idea of not pulling on a leash. So I've had to go back to the basics, kind of walk in very boring areas until she gets it, and it's working. It's just slower than other dogs, which is fine. Another one, crate training. This was the first day Silver had ever been introduced to a crate. We have the door wide open. He chose to go in there on his own to take a nap. And so it can be a positive experience for them. And we actually had, I think, another day before we had to leave him with a friend, so we could go out of town. And he did that very quickly. Same thing. Ella took to it really fast. We use it now just for when we're not home, because we still don't quite trust her. She still kind of counter surfs every once in a while, and she's weird. So we're still figuring some things out with her. So when we're out there, and then at night, but in the morning we'll open it and let her out, and a lot of times she'll just go back in on her own. Klaus, he got used to the crate, but he never got used to being alone. So it's kind of hard to see, but I reinforced the crate with carabiners, and he still got out. So he was comfortable with the crate as long as someone was home. And the way we fix that is we brought Silver to live with us. So it luckily is he's not missing me. He just doesn't want to be alone. And that's actually a characteristic of Rottweilers. They don't like to be alone. That was a fix that worked for us. It may or may not work for other people. So just knowing your dog can help a lot. So what motivates your dog? Treats are usually number one for a lot of dogs. Some dogs are more driven by praise. So whether you pet them or just tell them good boy, good girl. And that would be example is Klaus is very motivated. He also likes some praise. He doesn't really like to be touched as much, but he'll take it. And then Ella, she on a walk will not listen to treats for anything, but she responds a little bit better for praise. And some dogs are more motivated by toys and balls and stuff like that. How active is your dog? Is your dog running around a million miles an hour all day, every day, or they happy being a couch potato? How old is your dog? What breed is your dog? So I think this is a Malinois. They're usually pretty high energy working dogs, but just because that's the typical Malinois, you might get a lazy one. Kind of like with Klaus being working breed Rottweiler, he's pretty happy just being oh god most of the time. And then what triggers your dog? Does your dog have any fears? Does your dog have any pain? Are they okay with kids? Are they not? So how can you help them through that? How can you set them up for success in those kinds of and just kind of on a closing note, beauty of dogs is that they live in the moment, and as you learn them and they learn you, they're very adaptable. Just because you've been maybe doing something wrong or you want to try to change something, doesn't mean that your dog is already set in their ways. That's absolutely not the case. Klaus, I think they said he was 2.5 when I got him, but he was probably closer to 4. And he's overcome so much. Ella, they said she was 4, and she's already made a lot of improvements. Silver, living on a ranch until he was about 4, into a house in the city, he's done really well. So dogs are very adaptable when they live in them. So most dogs are not beyond help. Yes, that's kind of all I have to present and talk at you. So if anyone has questions or wants me to talk a little bit more about something else, I'm happy.
How does your training work? Like, do we just call you up? Do we say, hey, my neighbor's got 2 terrible dogs called Peanut and Butternut? This is a hypothetical.
Yeah, there's a few different options. If you know that you absolutely need help and want help, I do hour-long sessions. I like to do them once a week, no more than that usually, just because I want to give you a chance to practice some of the techniques and work on maybe some of the observations that I make that you haven't seen. And then if you're still not sure, I do consultation calls, half-hour consultation calls, which I'm also happy to do even if you want the session already. And it depends on the issue. Like if you're having a trouble with leash walking or pulling on the leash, I'll meet you somewhere, field park or tech library, I'll meet you there to work on it, or if it's something more at the house, like it's not listening to boundaries like counter surfing or chasing after cats or harassing another dog or something like that, then I would prefer to be at the house. That's cool.
I'm ready to get in their dog and I want to get one from the shelter.
Okay.
You know, like a female, about a year old. I don't really want. Do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, so let's kind of going back to this slide. So knowing yourself as well. How active are you? When you go to meet the dogs at the shelter, keep in mind that you won't get the whole story. When we met Ella, for us, it was, okay, she's not reactive to men. She's not jumping on us. She's not, you know, going totally nuts, but that was such a small part of it. So if you can, I would take the dog, maybe for, if they let you take them for a walk. You don't have other dogs right now?
No, just cats.
Okay. Sometimes they'll know, if they're okay with cats or not. So have questions ready, sometimes. But yeah, if you have an idea of maybe a breed, or if anyone, posted and you think it's really cute, do some research on the breed. Not always that's gonna indicate a lot, but it can, like with Klaus. Rottweiler doesn't like to be alone, that's definitely true for him. But being overly reactive and just being a working dog, he's more happy being house. Ella, she's also a working breed. She probably would do better with some agility or some sort of work. So that's you're gonna want to look at that, assess your energy levels, the dog's energy levels, size. Some people have injuries, or they just don't get around as well as they used to, and so you don't want a really big dog that's especially active, because that can make it harder to walk them. Not impossible, but just some things to find.
Have you ever thought about going to the shelter and doing some training on the dogs that they do have? That way they're more adoptable? Or is there any volunteer opportunities for students to go and help you do that type of things, you know? To get that done, you know, have you thought about that?
Yeah, so when I first came to Sapporo in 2016, shortly after that, a friend and I would go to the shelter every weekend and help walk some of the dogs. I don't know if they still do that. I imagine they still accept volunteers. I have thought about going and helping training some of them. I do also work a 9 to 5. I work remotely. So I could probably do it. And then the third thing is just emotional energy. It's really hard for me to see all those dogs there, even though I know that if I could help them, you know, be better behaved, they have better chance at being adopted. So maybe I have thought about also like talking to the shelter, be like, hey, can you set up a program? Like people who adopt out a dog, maybe they get a discount if they do training session. Or let them offer, you know, people going saying, hey, help me choose a dog. If they don't really know how to do that, maybe they can contact me and I can help get involved that way to help kind of keep those numbers down. Because I know pretty much every shelter everywhere, they see a lot of dogs go out and then come back. So whether that's training or it's just not a good fit, I have been thinking of ways to try and get more involved with, but haven't quite gotten there yet.
Are you involved with APOS?
I was more involved when I was a student, and I did go to one of their meetings a couple months ago, just to say, hey, like I'm doing this thing, how can I help you? And they really said that what they need is just to get their word out. So does everyone here know about APAS? No, so it's the Animal Protective Association of Sapporo. So they help a lot with like trap and release for stray cats. They'll trap them, try to get them spayed and neutered, and then a lot of times they get released again. They do have a program for people who can't afford to get their dogs spayed and neutered. They have a program for that where they'll help. They do different types of fundraisers. They used to do a large yard sale, and I don't remember where the proceeds went. I don't know if they put that back into theirs or if they donate to the shelter, but they do a lot for the
spay and neuter.
okay. And they write grants and get money to help this. I think their big thing is the spay and neuter, but they help a lot. The well-being of the animals, and so they have a website too, and they meet every first Monday of the month, or I can't remember. They meet once a month at the public library.
And you said you have another training session coming up. You tell me more about that?
Yeah, so I have another seminar kind of like this coming up on April 5th. It was March 15th, but I guess the convention center got rented out by a movie crew. So if anyone wants to be an extra, look out for a call, I guess. I have no idea what the movie is, but yeah, so it'll be at the convention center, April 5th. I think that's Friday, from 5:30 to 7:30, roughly. So it'll be kind of this was like my test run. So I'll probably try to go more into detail on some of these things. So if you have feedback and there's something else that you want to learn more about, and I can try to include that. And then right now I have it limited to 10 people, just because I'm not sure. I don't remember the size of the room that they're giving me at the convention center, and also yeah, I just don't know how many people are gonna be interested. Right now I have 7 people signed up, so I might bump that up if more people are interested in going to that seminar. That one I'm gonna try to include, some like worksheets and stuff, so you don't have to like remember all of the word vomit I've given you. Yeah, so it'll be like this, but maybe a little bit more in depth, more like a class.
Do you ever do trainings with the animals, in like a small group or something like that?
I haven't, one thing I'm interested in doing when the weather starts being more, predictable and nice is for people who I've worked with and I trust them and their dog and know that they're in a good place, do pack walks together, for like socialization. And I do have, a dog trainer insurance, so if anything were to happen, it should be covered under that. And then after the first one, if they just wanna kind of go on their own, meet up, that's totally fine, but to kind of facilitate kind of more dog walks together, there's a lot of dogs around, but I never really see people coming together to walk their dogs together. But I don't do like basic training with a group of people and their dogs. It's yeah, it can be too chaotic.
I know you mentioned nutrition, but can you elaborate more on the nutrition for dogs?
You want me to just kind of talk more about how I started feeding my dogs?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so let's just go back.
That's been kind of the thing I've been struggling with. I
Yeah.
think largely mine's going through a growth spurt.
Okay.
Probably not too much pizza.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't get pizza.
So,
Byron's trying to convince Oliver to switch to a pizza only diet.
I would look into the Forever Dog book and then this rotational mono feeding, so I've got kind of done a combination of those two. So Klaus, he used to have a very sensitive stomach. He couldn't eat like beef, poultry, anything. He would get dandruff. He would start like bile vomiting. It was just, he was very sensitive. But now, the way we feed him is, I guess the idea is that dogs in the wild and wolves also, it's based on, there's some slight differences between wolves and the modern dog. But a lot of it does transfer over. They don't eat meat and plants on the same day. So if they go and they have a kill, they eat that. They won't mess with berries and whatnot. And I guess there's actually been, I forget where I read this, but there have been reports of packs of like, or herds of deer and elk allowing wolves to walk with them if they know that they have eaten a large meal the day before. And so today for us at our house is a meat day. And so we feed raw. And then we also trim off as much fat as possible because commercially raised animals have a lot more fat than they would in the wild. And so now Klaus can eat chicken, we find quail at John Brooks. And then another one from this book is green lipped mussels. Is really good at reducing inflammation and helping with preventing arthritis and stuff like that. So they got some of those this morning as a snack with Klaus is on a lot of meds for his brain tumor, and some supplements that are better on an empty stomach. Those are mentioned in here as well. Yeah, today's meat day. We will, on meat day, other than in the morning and the evening when Klaus gets his medicine, we only feed them once. So, give their digestive system time to relax. And then they'll sleep the rest of the afternoon. They haven't eaten their full meal yet. They'll do that when I get home. But then after that, they'll sleep. One thing to watch out for is bones. Make sure you know whether your dog is actually going to chew it or if they're more of a gulper. We've been fortunate. Ours chew, they'll eat the bones. You wanna make sure that they're not too big and too dense, like you don't wanna give them a whole like deer femur. But, so Silver, he'll get little game hens today, they're at Walmart, they're actually currently on sale, so, yeah, we just trim all the excess fat and skin off, and then he's at room temperature raw. And then tomorrow will probably be a plant day, so that's where that rotational comes from, and the rotational mono feeding. And ideally, you wanna wait at least about 18 hours after meat to feed plants, so that they don't mix in the digestive system. Plants go through a lot faster than the meat. Yeah, so what do we feed them? I don't really follow the mono thing unless it's a watermelon day, which is really fun. You just get a watermelon, wash it off really good, and take it outside, like smash it, and then they'll eat it. They'll eat the rind and everything. It's actually really fun to watch them do. And it's fun for me to get some of that stress out from work and whatever. The thing with watermelon and other melon is you don't want to feed other things with it. It can cause a lot of stomach upset. The RMF community, they find that watermelon helps detox a lot. And so when we first started this process, Silver, he used to have issues and he would get really itchy, got yeast infection, so he smelled really bad. And that did flare up for about a week, half to 2 weeks. But then after that, he's been great. His coat is soft and shiny, and he has a little bit of crustiness on his ears. I'm not really sure what's going on with that, but it doesn't seem to bother him quite as much as it. So some of these things can take a while to heal, but it's not uncommon for things to get worse before they get better. But yeah, they eat a lot of different things. They love asparagus, green beans, carrots, broccoli, sugar snap peas, blueberries, sweet potato, butternut squash, acorn squash, spaghetti squash, like pretty much if you can eat it, they can eat it. There are a few things that they can't. Onions are no-go, macadamia nuts are no-go. And then I think it's nutmeg. But some of those are outlined in this book. And then additional supplements and stuff. So Klaus, he's on some pretty heavy anti-seizure medicines that can affect his liver. And so he gets a liver enzyme, and this will help with that. So, but yeah, what has really helped is the raw and the rotation.
How about like amounts? Because that's kind of what I've been.
Yeah, so they recommend on meat day about 3 to 4%. So all 3 of our dogs are about 80 pounds, so they get like 3 to 4 pounds a day, and that includes the bone and like organs and stuff like that. And you can estimate. Also, if you've ever noticed your dog kind of throwing up that yellow, green, gross stuff, that's bile vomiting, and that's because your dog's body is used to having a bunch of extra fat, and so their body is getting ready to digest all that fat. And then if they don't get it, so if you miss feeding time by a certain, like an hour or so, they'll start like they have too much bile production, and so they're getting rid of it. But we found, and they've found too, that once you get rid of the extra fat, then their body doesn't go into overdrive and producing it. And what can also help if you don't do this is just changing when you feed your dog. Don't be on a strict schedule, because then the body won't start to predict when they're going to get that next fatty meal. So that can help too, even if you don't make the way. And then plant day, they say closer to maybe 5 to 6% of their body weight. And we've noticed that they do lose some weight. So Klaus, he's kind of more of a long-haired Rottweiler. It's just harder to see, but he's definitely lost like 4 to 5 pounds. And he looks a lot more fit. Silver, he has a lot. He's very short haired. We're starting to see some of his ribs a little bit, which can be alarming if you're not used to seeing your dog so fit and trim. But it really want to look at like energy level, like he hasn't missed a beat, like he's like a puppy again, he's high energy, his spine isn't really showing, stuff like that. And you can also switch up the rotation. You can do meat day, plant day, fast, and then repeat. Some of these people in this group, I don't know how they do it, they fasted their dogs for like 11 days. And I'm like, mine definitely would not, but it can't, they swear by it, it's helped them cure cancers and all kinds of stuff. Right now, because we have 3 dogs, it's chaotic. I keep them all in the same rotation. I randomize it. So far this week, it's been 1 meat, 1 plant, 1 meat, 1 plant. But I've done 2 or 3 days of plants, 1 meat. I've done 2 days of meat. No, I'm not sure, but you can randomize it and just see what works for your dog.
Right now, it's probably about 8%. So, but not showing any ribs or anything, not gaining any weight.
Yeah.
Other than just overall size. 5 months, I think, is going through a massive growth spurt.
Yeah, so for a puppy, I would probably stick to that.
Okay.
I probably won't go much higher than that.
Yeah, because that's been my fear, and I might be overfeeding him a little bit, but he's not really showing any. Energy has been great.
And if he, so some dogs will sell fast, and
Yeah.
when I had Xena, she would try to do that, and I would get freaked out, like, you have to eat, you're gonna starve. And that's just not the case, like, they really are.
That's the one thing I've noticed, he's not heavily food motivated like that. He won't just see something. Not hungry, so.
Yeah, so if he starts kind of tapering off how much he eats, just,
A little bit.
yeah, don't be alarmed that he's not eating.
I'm hoping he's not gonna eat it this forever. He's gonna go broke.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's another thing I wanna do is I wanna sit down and do like a cost estimate of how much it costs per month to feed them like this, cause I haven't really seen that, out there. And just at least compare it to Klaus's vet bills, because I feel that, so before we started the raw rotational diet, he was getting what was, thought of as a high-end veterinarian developed fresh dog food. And it was cooked and it had a lot of, I guess, like starchy, sugary vegetables in with it. And so I guess that's what causes a lot of the problems in the body is, and then they talk about it in this book a lot. They're called AGEs, and I don't remember what it stands for, but it's basically like fat and carbs, when heated together, produce basically, I guess, compounds that accelerate aging, and can cause a lot of damage. And even just heating in your own body, so mixing in the intestines and stuff like that. And so that's why the rotational has helped a lot, I think, with that. But yeah, so once we got off of the cooked everything together diet, helped a lot, because Klaus's, it's for his brain tumor and least. But I think maybe monthly feeding them like this costs more than a traditional, typical way of feeding. But I think in the long run, it pays off, especially as your dog gets older. Like, cause with Xena, like I've had her raw, and she, 11 years old, no issues with, arthritis or anything like that. She was very rarely going to the vet. I don't know if that answered any.
Oh, no,
questions.
that's great, it's a
There-
very unique
There's a lot.
nutrition, or meal plan that you have for them.
Yeah,
Which
and-
is very different from the typical kibble
Yeah,
or wet canned food.
This group, most of them are against like supplements and herbs and things like that. And so that's why I like this book a lot. So this book, they still they recommend at times doing like a keto diet, so high fat, which I don't agree with. So it's just, yeah, basically, if you want to look into it more, or have more questions, I can go back and kind of try to give a better cohesive answer on how I'm combining these two, but that's basically what I'm doing with how I feed them. And then actually this lady, I think it's Dr. Karen Becker, it's probably hard to see on there. She has another book she did years ago. This book is actually fairly recent, 2017. She has one from years ago on how to like prepare your own home dog food. But it kind of still combines a lot of the meat time. But she has a recipe for supplements to make sure, like, if the silver, for whatever reason, he doesn't like to eat organs, like he won't eat chicken heart or liver or anything like that. In that book, she'll list out like her amount of food. This is what you need for this vitamin mix. Gives the recipe on eating your own at home. And so I do that for deficiencies with like if they're not getting eggs or the organs. I do add in some of those extra vitamins. It's a lot. So I'm still kind of trying to get it all in one place. So I apologize for the rambling, but it's just
No, that's.
a lot of information to dig through and then synthesize. So, but yeah, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out and I can try to get a more direct, precise answer.
I don't know if we have any more questions. If not, then adjourn from here, but I will be creating a LibGuide. When this is a guide that we create and put on our website, especially about, of all of our Engage the World lectures, we've gotten some type of information for that. So I'd love to just be able to, provide links or information, especially to these books. Since we're a library and we have access to some of that, we can get that in. And this could be something that we could buy some books for that within our budget. That way we can actually help out the tech community, at least with providing information. So, thank you very much for bringing some insight, especially to me. I've got two weenies and then my daughter's little rat thingy. And the tweenies are, the weenie dog in them gets, pretty, a little feisty, but, that Chihuahua side, it's, the little chili eaters, it's just.
Honestly, I'm more afraid of chihuahuas and small dogs than I am big dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Look at what they're bred for. I mean,
Yeah, the big dogs are just.
a dog is bred to go fight a badger. You go find a badger and see why that thing's so dang demonic.
Yeah, I used to deliver pizzas and the worst encounter I've ever had was with Cocker Spaniels. Cocker Spaniels are the most aggressive dogs I've ever met. So-
Eagles at least just bark at you.
Yeah, everything else is just all bark, but Cocker Spaniels, I don't know, whatever reason, they just.
Yeah, I used to cycle to campus and there was one stretch of road I always had to be on guard because without fail, Chihuahua, they'll bite your ankles, they don't
They
care.
will bite your
They bite
ankles.
your tire, they don't care. Big dogs, they'll get stiff and stand to their ground, but you say, hey, like, get
Oh,
back
yeah,
here, and they'll
yeah.
leave you alone, but no, small
Exactly.
dogs, they don't care.
Exactly, so, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just got it for my puppy. My puppy's head is like the size of.
I know, right? Just like, what the heck? What's going on? I think Chihuahua,
Oh,
are a lot of fun.
So we have a more, Dr. Rhiannon, we have a more specific question. My son will not do his homework or show up to recitation.